Welcome to my website, lessonsdrummingexpert.com. My name is Randall Beach. Please check out all the information on the website and the pages regarding or associated with this lesson. You'll find a lot of great info. Today we're going to go to the next level on playing double strokes and developing a double stroke roll, 30-second note diddles. And you'll see on the page here along with this lesson, there are two different exercises that I call the diddle grids. And each of them are built upon either a 16th note or triplet check pattern. And you'll notice in the notation that there's a slash across the stem. And if that's new to you, what that slash means is that you play a double stroke. And the speed of the double stroke is exactly double. It's a double stroke. It's twice the speed of the check pattern. So the underlying 16th notes are the check pattern, and when you play a double or diddle stroke, it's going to be 30-second notes. Now, if we start slowly, work that same wrist and finger technique that we talked about in the previous lesson to get strong, even diddles. You just want to practice placing diddles on each of the different notes throughout the check pattern. You'll see it's just a mathematical sequence. We play a diddle on the first note of each four, then we move it to E, then we move it to and, then we move it to Similar concept to the accent grid patterns that we did in previous lessons. So I'm going to take this, first let's just look at the first measure of the 16th note diddle grid and think about some things that you want to, or let's talk about some things that you want to make sure you focus on. First of all, we want to play these at what I call medium height. So the stick heights are going to be, 6 to 8 inches approximately, but the check pattern's right here. Now the check pattern is played with your wrist. It's a wrist stroke. You're not letting go of the sticks for this. There's no reason to do that. When you play a double stroke on any one of those notes, you're going to use that quick, strong rebound stroke using your wrist and your fingers to make both notes as even as possible. So that's a diddle on the beat, on one. Now I want you to notice that the rest of the check pattern remains the same, consistent and even. You want to stay locked into the hand motion and the rhythm and flow of that so that when you play the double stroke, you don't break tempo. Lots of times people get to the diddles and tempo goes out the window. Keep the rhythm steady. And also hear in your mind the way that the diddle stroke is twice as fast. Diggy-dut-dut-dut, diggy-dut-dut-dut. Be precise with that. So the first measure, the way I like to play this is a measure of check pattern without diddles and then the measure with the diddles. So let's do check pattern and rhythm number 1, which is a diddle on the first note of each set of 4. So 1 E and ready, go. Now, I'm trying to keep my sticks the same height even when I play the diddle. I'm not doing this. That's a common mistake, to play the diddle higher than all the rest of it. I'm striving for this completely consistent monotone sound. If I develop that kind of consistency and control over my sticks, then when I get into a real musical environment and I want to create accents or expression or changes in heights, I have the control to do it. But not until I can control one thing can I change it and fluctuate it to many different things and still be in control. So I would recommend that you take each one of these measures and practice them individually. The first 4 measures are a single diddle stroke, and it moves through the 4 beats. So let's play the first 4 measures. I'm going to play the first 4 measures all together with a check pattern before each diddle variation. Let's do this at 90 beats a minute. So I'm going to turn on the metronome to 90, and we will play just those first 4 with check pattern. Here we go. So we're 1 E and a 2 E and a ready, and now, let's say, for instance, you can't do that. That's too fast. Well, you just might have to start slower. You might have to start here. or even slower. It doesn't matter, but you've got to play even stick heights, even diddle, and get control over the rhythm, and especially both strokes of the diddle. As I mentioned in the previous lesson, a common mistake is to play what's called flop diddles. Here's what this would sound like as flop diddles. And sometimes people do that and think, hey, I'm cooking, man, here I go. No, you've got to play both notes. And all the diddle work we did, the preliminary diddle work we did in the previous lesson is very important. So you've got to work on that. Now, we can keep going faster and faster. Obviously, we want to build up our speed. You should be able to play these exercises at 120, 132 beats a minute and really make them smooth and even all the way through. If you can do that, man, you're doing awesome. And obviously, you can go faster, as fast as you can go. Okay, now, let me mention one other thing that's real important as you go into this next level of developing your double stroke roll. And from the very beginning, I've talked about holding on to the sticks. And being able to hold on to your sticks never goes away. You've got to be able to do that. And a common mistake that people make is as soon as a figure requires they let go a little bit, then they let go and never hold back on again. Notice that the check pattern is just 16th note singles, like one of the very first exercises we played. Obviously, I'm not going to let go of my sticks. Those are wrist strokes. Why would I do that? That makes no sense whatsoever. But what often happens is you get to that first diddle and you let go a little bit on one hand, and then it's like your brain says, let go, and everything goes out the window because you don't control your sticks. My left hand in the first measure isn't playing any diddles, so I keep doing wrist stroke the whole time on my left hand. I let go a little bit when I play the diddle, and immediately the stick's back against my palm again. I only let go when the figure that I'm playing requires it. And the rest of the time, I hold on. That's very important. Make sure you're doing that. That's a common mistake. Now, let's go on to the next group of diddle rhythms, which is playing 2 diddles per count. So I've got diddles on 1 E, and then the next measure I've got diddles on E and, then I've got diddles on and then I've got diddles on 1 and Now I hope that immediately as you start to look at this cycle, you are thinking back to the 16th note timing grid, because there's relationships here. And if you understand how those rhythms work, as you work with these rhythms, it all starts to come together. We're just working around 4/16 notes and doing all kinds of different things with 4/16 notes. So we did it in the timing grid, we did it in the accent grid, now we're doing it with diddles. So this should come easier and easier for you. Let's play the next set. We've got 4 different rhythms with diddles together. Let's try that. 1 E and a 2 E and a ready. Okay, now the next 2 measures are still 2 diddles per beat, but it's all the right hands and all the left hands. This is important because this is what you do when you play a full speed roll. We're just going to isolate the right hand and the left hand. Now let me point out here also that when we talked about the chicken wing thing in the arm motion, when you only play 1 diddle, it requires very, very little arm. I want you to notice how much arm I use on my right hand, for instance. It's just maybe a tiny bit. It's because it's just 1 fast diddle. You don't have to play repetitive diddles, which is where the chicken wing comes in. Now that's the same case with the 5-stroke rolls. The 2 diddles together, you're still only playing 1 diddle at a time on each hand. But now when we get to measures 9 and 10, we are going to play consecutive multiple rights, and so that chicken wing becomes much more important. And then we do it on the left. So let's do those 2 measures together. 90 beats a minute. 1, 2, ready, and... Notice that the rhythm is dup, dig it up, 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 not da 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 da, not. Dig it up, dig it up, dig it up, dig it up. It's doubles. You've got to play true 30-second notes. That's gaining control over the interpretation of the diddle. Now, in some instances, people will interpret the diddles differently, and you'll have the power to do that and the control to do that if you learn how to play them precisely. Then you can do whatever you want with them under some other context. Now, the next 4 measures is measures 11, 12, 13, and 14. This is 3 diddles. So I like to think of this section as, let's think of the note that we're not going to play a diddle on. We're not going to play a diddle on 1, then we're not going to play a diddle on E, then and then So we cycle through. Notice that at any given time, one of the hands is playing consecutive, continuous diddles. So the arm motion from that hand is going to be a little more pronounced. The other hand is not. And that switches back and forth. So let's play the next 4 measures. 1, 2, 3, and... Now the last measure is all the diddles, and that's just a long roll. So let's do that one once. Let's play this one twice through. Ready? Go. Work to keep your height smooth, consistent, and play those diddles strong and even. All right. Now, you can practice those 1 measure at a time in groups the way I just presented them, or put the whole thing together. But the important thing is consistent heights, control those sticks, only let go enough to get that strength in the diddle, and use your wrists on the check pattern and get that thing relaxed so it can flow all the way through. Let's do this exercise one last time, all the way through the whole thing at 120. So this is getting up to pretty much full speed, 30-second note roll, and you just got to push through it and get that consistent flow all the way through. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. Work on that diddle grid. Now, the next diddle grid is also very important, and I love this one. This is the triplet diddle grid, and the concept is exactly the same, but we're based in triplets. Now, a couple of things to think about, and this is why triplets are so cool, is because there's only 3 notes per beat. The sticking flows back and forth from hand to hand. So when we play a diddle on 1, it's not all on the right hand. It goes right, then left, then right, then left. So we work through the first 3 measures are a diddle on 1, then law, then lee. Then we do 1 law, then we do law lee, then we do 1 lee, then we do all the rights, then all the lefts, and then all of the whole roll. So we play a long triplet roll. Now I hope you notice the similarities between that and the diddle timing grid and the diddle accent grid. These are all working together. We're just playing around with triplets and isolating the different notes in singles and doubles and then all 3. So let's do this one. Let's do this one at 120 beats a minute as well, because we're in triplets, so 120 is going to be, quite a bit slower than 16th notes at 120. And you can use your metronome. You can work each of these measures one by one. Start out very, very slow if you have to, but I'll demonstrate this at 120 beats a minute.
Okay. You want the triplet? You just want quarter notes.
That's good. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, that's the triplet grid. All right, let's also do the triplet diddle grid a little bit faster so you can hear how the interpretation and the flow works within this faster speed. Let's do it at 160 beats per minute on the triplet. Here we go. Now, one other thing, now that we've played through these two diddle grids, just a couple other thoughts that I think are important for you to master this aspect of drumming. And we've talked about the strength of the diddle. That's so important, and you've got to continue to work, and do not allow yourself to play this floppy, sloppy, out of control diddle. Get control over both notes. But there's one other aspect of being in control of these two notes that's very important, and that is from a timing perspective. When you start to play faster check patterns and you get your diddles up closer to full 30-second note speed, then one very, very common mistake is that the diddle will come in early. So you're playing the check pattern and here comes the diddle and it comes in early. You have to kind of hold back and wait and place that diddle right where it belongs. For instance, a really good example of this is measure 2 of the 16th note diddle grid. I'll use this to illustrate. The correct rhythm is, that's the precise rhythm. Now, that's kind of easy to hear and not too difficult to do from a technical standpoint at a slower speed. But when it starts to get faster, you got to wait for that left-hand diddle. Otherwise, it'll turn into this. And that is really common. You throw that diddle in there and you think, hey, I'm playing a diddle, but it's out of time. You have to wait so that the first note of your diddle stroke is in the same location as the check pattern note would be if you weren't playing a diddle. Then the second note of the diddle comes after that. That's very important. The second note of the triplet diddle grid is very much the same. So you've got check pattern, triplet, triplet, triplet. Now, when people start to play that faster, it turns into this. They're playing the right sticking, and it's it's close to the right thing, but the diddle is early, and so the rhythmical interpretation is messed up. You've got to wait for the diddle. So that it's rhythmically correct. It becomes even a bigger deal when you go much faster, and the early out-of-time diddle becomes less obnoxious or less noticeable when you go faster, and so it's easy to let people to let that happen and not do anything about it. For instance, this is with the diddle coming in early at a faster speed. That's how a lot of people will play that. It should be. No matter how fast the check pattern gets, that double stroke is twice the speed of the check. So as you work from slow to fast, pay attention to that and wait for those diddle entrances and make them precise, and your control will be very good. Good luck.